Equity Mate.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Welcome to the Equity Mate Summer Series of 2020, brought to you by Superhero. Over 12 episodes, we're diving into some of Australia's largest and most well-known companies, as selected by you, the Equity Mates community. We'll be unpacking the company, its industry, outlooks and key financials, and in some instances, we'll also be taking the tough questions straight to the CEO. And in this episode, we are lucky enough to be joined by one of them. However, to kick it off, as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How's it going, bro?
I'm very good, Bryce. I'm very excited for this episode. Two things that we love we love investing on this show, obviously. But two particular things we love. We've been talking a lot about IPOs this year.
Yes.
And we talk about reading as the best way to learn about investing.
We do.
And the guest we've got today brings those two together.
Match made in heaven.
Yeah.
We are very fortunate to be joined in the studio by Wayne Baskin, who is the Deputy CEO and CTO at Booktopia, recently listed, and co-founder and CTO at Superhero. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. What an intro. The pressure's on me now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it is. You must wear a lot of hats there. Deputy CEO, CTO, and for people who are unfamiliar, that's Chief Technology Officer at Booktopia, recently listed. And then the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer at Superhero. So I think the first thing is thanks for finding the time in your day to join us.
Thanks for having me.
So this conversation, we're going to really focus on Booktopia. We've recently done a bit of a deep dive on the company and, it's newly listed, so it's exciting and a lot of people are looking at it at the moment. To start with, though, would love to hear how you describe Booktopia and what you think the company is.
Yeah, sure. So Booktopia, for those that don't know, Australia's largest online bookstore, soon to be Australia's largest bookstore. We're hoping. We got to look at the numbers and see where that ends up. But what Booktopia is, it's an online bookstore, but it's technology enabled and it's a logistics company in the background. So we've invested heavily in our tech. All the tech is built in house. We've invested heavily in our distribution and our logistics, and then on top of that, we're a bookstore. So as you know, we sell, our website, we sell over 6 million products. We have about 150,000 of those in stock or ready to ship to our customers. And it's all that customer-centric approach. Everything is about the customer. Everything we do is about the customer. And that's every decision from the board level all the way down is thinking what's the best thing for the customer.
Yeah. So let's go back to the start of the journey. We're interested in the entrepreneurial sort of spirit and what it's like to take a company from zero to IPO. What's the journey been like? And perhaps if you can talk us through some of the tough moments that you've had to get through. You've listed last week, so congratulations on that. Exciting. But what's the journey been like?
Look, yeah, I joined Booktopia over 12 years ago. The company is now, I believe, close to 16 years old. And look, there's been a lot of great moments. There's been a lot of tough moments. We didn't take any investment in the company until January 2020. Wow. So there's been no investment. And it's all been built off sell more books, invest in the company, sell more books, invest in the company. And so what that means is you do, have some real tough moments, especially from a cash flow perspective, when you're growing at the rate we're growing. We're growing 30% year on year for many years. We were BRW Fast 100. I think it was 8 years or something like that in a row. So, there's a lot of growth, which requires a lot of cash flow and a lot of capital invested in it. And we didn't take on any capital until, as I said, the beginning of this year. So some of those tough moments are some of the tough discussions you have with your suppliers, making sure that the business is able to service the customer, what's the best thing for the customer, but also on that, very, very small budgets that we did. And, it's only now in the past probably few years where we feel like, okay, we can all breathe out and we can all just say, well, how are we going to grow this company now that we've got, the capital injected in it? How are we really going to, grow and how are we going to accelerate it to the next level?
What was the driving decision behind not wanting to take on investment? Like, I imagine you would battle between wanting to take it on to, speed up growth, but then I guess the other side would be not wanting to give away too much equity and bootstrap.
Yeah, look, I don't think there was a need for it up until around, 2015, 2016. And, for those that know the story, we tried to IPO the business in 2016. It was right when Amazon were deciding they were coming to Australia. And so, we would go through the roadshow, we went through the whole process, and every question was, what about Amazon? What about Amazon? And I'm sure, in about 5 minutes, you guys are going to ask me what about Amazon. So I won't jump the question. But I think what happened then is the investors all had this mindset that Amazon are coming to Australia. They're going to crush retail. They're going to crush e-commerce. And, a few weeks out, a month out from us actually lodging the prospectus, which was all done, ready to go, Amazon actually formally announced they were coming to Australia. And all the investors were like, not going to happen. We want to see how this plays out. We want to see what happens. And so from there, we pulled the IPO. Talk about one of the tough moments. That was one of the tough moments. I think we'd put around, probably 18 months worth of work into that IPO. It was a long process, getting the company ready for IPO. It was a tough moment. My CEO and he's one of the co-founders, he bounced straight back. He was straight back in it. And for me, it probably took a couple of weeks to actually just, internalize that and say, okay, that didn't happen, but we're going to move on from here.
Yeah.
And then since then, we actually did raise some capital after that. We tried a crowdfunding with Equitize, which, I think the market wasn't ready for. We were going to be one of the biggest ever crowdfunded companies. And I think what happened is people were just putting in like $500, $1,000, and you don't get to $10 million by putting in $500. So it was an interesting journey. I think, Equitize and those guys are onto a good thing. I think we were just before our time. And then around January 2020, probably late 2019, we decided the way to raise capital is to have someone in your business who lives and breathes the business, but also knows how to raise capital. And it was probably the only role in the business we didn't have. We were great marketers, we were great at sales, we had the tech, we had the product, we had the strategy. We just didn't ever have anyone in the business who could raise capital. So we brought in an external consultant and gave him, a role in the business. He had his own business cards. He sat in the business. He learned the business. And what the difference was there is that he learned the business. He spent months in the business understanding it. So he could go off to those meetings. It didn't take me out of the business, didn't take our CEO out of the business. He was going to all those meetings and having those discussions. He also had the connections. Raising capital is all about having connections. I've learned that on my other journeys as well. It's like if you've got the connections, you can raise capital easily.
We're learning that.
Yeah. We might get that consultant's number after this.
But him knowing the business he could talk as a Booktopian, not as an investment banker trying to sell Booktopia. And that was one of the major differences.
So you're right. We are going to talk about Amazon. And I would love to frame this part of the conversation by going back to, your conversations in 2016 after you pulled the IPO. Amazon had announced and I guess you guys were sort of circling the wagons and figuring out how you were going to fight this online retail giant that had disrupted so many other countries. What were those conversations like, and how did you see yourselves positioning Booktopia against Amazon as it entered?
Pre-2016, Amazon's biggest downfall, I won't say downfall because I'm sure they will go on to do well, but to their launch. Their launch was nothing that anyone expected. I think we can all agree on that. They haven't blown the lights out that everyone expected. And I think the reason for that was they actually had too much media coverage. Everyone knew from the beginning of 2015, Amazon are coming to Australia. So if you look at companies that have thrived, and you're not going to talk Booktopia for now, but look at Catch, for example. Catch, if Amazon had launched without Catch knowing anything, they would have been dead in the water. Yep. They pivoted brilliantly. They built a marketplace. They've become one of Australia's largest marketplaces. And today they're thriving in an Amazon environment. So there were so many companies that actually had that, that time that, to be able to say, what is our strategy? What is our Amazon strategy? And for us, I remember a meeting we had, and we were already, at that time looking at, Movietopia and Gametopia and Toytopia and, all these exotic, these arms of the business we were going to build out. And I remember thinking and sitting down with my CEO and saying, look, we need to focus. If we're gonna do one thing, we need to do it well. And then when we looked around the world at companies that were thriving in an Amazon environment, it was exactly that. They knew their niche, they knew what they were good at, and they didn't try out Amazon. They didn't try to sell everything to everyone. And I think Amazon's, thing is they want to sell everything to everyone in the universe. They're not even stuck on Earth. They want to do everything. So for us, it was, well, let's stick to Earth, but let's be good at one thing. And we decided that was books. So we looked at all that strategy we were putting into toys and all the other, product lines. We said, no, let's come back to books. Let's focus on books, and we can just do so much better. And if you look at countries like Canada, there's some great book retailers there taking Amazon on. America as well, there's still some great book retailers taking Amazon on. So it was all about that focus, and it was all about just staying, true to who we are and not trying to be Amazon, because that's just never going to work.
So you mentioned that you're a tech company, logistics company, and have a focus on the customer, all three things that Amazon also say. How does your tech compare, and how, as an investor, should we be thinking about Booktopia versus Amazon when you're both sort of pitching the same sort of business philosophy, I guess?
Yeah, sure. I think there are two questions there. Our tech, built in-house, we always buy versus build. We always see what's out there. And we've just found that being able to build our own tech, and it's all commercial grade. We've got a team of 30 engineers supporting it, and that team's growing rapidly now. But the point there is we can get the efficiencies that we want out of that tech without relying on other people. So we can make small changes that make massive differences. We're shipping out at the moment around 30 to 40,000 units a day out of our distribution center. So if we save 1 second per unit we ship out, you can think of the efficiencies we can get there. Yeah. The same on our website. If we can increase our conversion rate by 1%, that's small little 1%. Last year we did 165 million. This year we'll do over 200 million in revenue. You can just imagine what 1% really gets you in revenue. So that's our tech. That's where we are. As far as Amazon versus Booktopia, Amazon have moved off books. Yes, they still sell books, but it's not where their focus is. And especially in Australia, it's not where their focus is. I think Amazon's revenues worldwide are around 3 to 5% books. For a company that started in books, at 100% books, they've moved to 3 to 5%. So really, their focus is on the marketplace. It's facilitating that sale from one person to another and taking a pretty significant clip on the way through, and then also helping those people with their logistics and taking a clip on the way through of that. So great business model. You don't have to post anything. You don't have to do anything if it's a marketplace transaction, or if you're doing all the logistics, you're charging for it. So they don't focus on books. They obviously do sell books in Australia, but it's not one of their focuses.
Yeah, right.
So one more question about Amazon, and then we might move to other competitors and other questions. I'm sure you're sick of the Amazon questions at this point. But I do want to ask about the Kindle. So Amazon launched that, 2007, around there, and it's obviously done well for them. How do you think about the Kindle and competing against that when I guess you guys sell other e-reader books and physical books?
Yeah, sure. So we launched a new partnership with Rakuten Kobo. Rakuten is a large company out of Japan who merged with Kobo, a Canadian company. And we launched that partnership early this year in the peak of COVID. We were selling ebooks before then. It was all our own solution. And this was one where we looked and said, hold on, it'd be better to have a partner. And what we launched there was audio streaming and all on Kobo devices. And you can read it on your iPhone and Android, but they've also got the physical device now, which competes with the Kindle. What's interesting in the market is the ebooks are actually on the decline worldwide.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So, I've said it for many years, the Kindle or the e-reader is the bread maker of our time. Everyone thought, yeah, it's a great idea. I'll get mum one, I'll get dad one, let them have a try. Some people have stuck. And, I say that to some people, they go, oh, I read all my books on an e-reader. And I'm like, yeah, but you probably read a lot of books. Yeah. And for people that are prolific readers, the e-reader is massive, because they don't have to have all these books everywhere, and they don't have to wait for the next one. And, there's people that are reading multiple books a week, and it makes sense. For someone who just wants to, get out of their mind, work and move off the digital platforms, they don't want to read on their iPhone or their Android. They don't want to have a second device they're taking with them anywhere. They just want to escape into a book. A book which has the smell, the feel, all of that you just take so for granted. So if you look worldwide, if you look in the States in particular, ebooks are on the decline. What is on the increase is audiobooks and audio streaming. And that's where Audible, which is Amazon's audio business, and we're competing with our audio streaming business. Now, the interesting thing there is, while that's great and it's on the increase and everyone loves it, the cost to produce an audiobook is not sustainable. Because, when you did an ebook, you took the file that was getting printed, you converted it into an EPUB file, and you put it on, you could sell it just like that. With an audiobook, you got to get someone to read it, someone with some great podcast voices like yourselves. But then hold on, I'm in Australia. That's an American accent. I don't want to hear an American. Yeah. I'm in Canada. I don't want to hear an Australian read it. So all of a sudden now, what they're finding is they have to do multiple reads of the same book. You got to pay that person because they're a professional. They're not just Wayne Baskin here sitting here with, no experience in voiceovers. So It's an interesting one, and I mean, we're following it. We definitely believe that we should give our readers the content wherever they want it. You know, we're content agnostic. If you want the physical book, if you want the audio book, or if you want the ebook, that's our belief.
Yeah, yeah. Audiobooks are a funny one for me. It feels like books are written to be read, and sometimes audiobooks sound a bit clunky. They seem like the worst version of podcasting.
Unless it's read by Barack Obama, that would be pretty good to listen to.
True.
Which is his. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the next question was from one of our audience members in terms of where do you see the preference for ebooks going? And I find that fascinating that it is on the decline, but all the reasons you've mentioned make sense.
Yeah. And everyone you speak to, they say, well, I'm different. I like a good physical book. And I like to say, well, you're not different. Yeah. You're actually in the majority right here. And yet, you know, we're prepared for whichever way it goes. You know, we're ready and we're prepared for it. We've got our ebook solution, got our audio streaming solution, and we've got our physical books, obviously.
Yeah. So we promised we would move away from Amazon. So I want to ask about a different competitor, which unfortunately is owned by Amazon. But it feels like that is more and more the case with everything. The Book Depository, for my mind, is probably one of the major, I guess, competitors to you guys in terms of like a similar business model. How do you think about competing with other online book retailers? And what was your reaction when they got acquired by Amazon?
Yeah, look, I think your research you've done well. I don't think a lot of people know Book Depository is owned by Amazon. People are like, I don't support Amazon. You know, I shop at Book Depository. Well, Book Depository is the same as Amazon. Book Depository's model when they launched was to disrupt Amazon in all the markets that Amazon was trying to get into, and then get bought by Amazon.
Right.
Tick. You know, they did it. You know, well done. Yeah. Good on them. But what that meant is they were undercutting Amazon in all of those markets, losing money hand over fist to undercut Amazon. When Amazon's acquired them, they thought, hold on, why are we losing money to undercut ourselves? And slowly but surely, they've increased their prices. Then when the GST change happened, Book Depository no longer had that, you know, ability to undercut by 10% because now they have to pay GST on all books that come into Australia. So what that means with Book Depository is, you know, and not even just Book Depository, just with all international players, is they're shipping majority of their books from overseas into Australia, and it's that time to get to the customer. Now, being customer centric, I'll take you back. I think it was probably around 2008, and we didn't stock a book at all. You know, we didn't have a single book. And Deceptively Delicious was launched by Jessica Seinfeld, who's Jerry Seinfeld's wife. And she was on the Oprah Book Club. And I don't know if you guys remember the Oprah Book Club. You probably don't. But the Oprah Book Club...
No, Bryce is still a big follower of the Oprah Book Club.
Oh, there you go. Love it. Yeah. Oprah Book Club worked in that if Oprah had you on her show, you would sell out of your book.
Yeah.
And what happened here with Jessica Seinfeld is every time they had a replay, we would just see a spike in sales. Until we got to a point where there were no more of her book left worldwide. And we saw that there were a few left at HarperCollins, a few hundred. And what we did is we bought those copies. We said, we're going to take all of those copies. And then what we saw is every time we sold one of those books, we get a great glowing review. How good is Booktopia? Yeah. And, you know, how amazing is their service? And every time we sell another book, we'd be like, so slow. Where's my book? What's going on? And straight away we realized, you know, let's put the customer first. Speed of delivery is important. You know, it doesn't need to be instant. We don't same day we offer it, but we don't see a lot of uptake in it. It's all about being able to get your book in that 1 to 2 days. Yeah. And what we see is that with, you know, international competitors and some of the local competitors, if they're not competing in that space of being able to ship the book within 1 to 2 days, they're not competing. You know. Now, yeah, if they're gonna undercut on price and they're gonna lose money, well then yes, they'll probably get the sale. But we're within the same ballpark of price. People are more, you know, saying, well, hold on, I'd save $1, save $2. I'd rather just get my book, you know, in the next, you know, couple of days rather than wait 2 weeks, up to 4 weeks during COVID from international.
Wow. Yeah.
So when we did the deep dive on Booktopia, we recognized or saw that, you know, overall book sales in the industry sort of in the single digits, but within that, the growth of online book sales is sort of skyrocketing relative. But you guys own Angus & Robertson, physical book retailer as well. Where does that sort of sit in the landscape? How do you think about physical book retailers going forward? Are they eventually going to be a thing of the past?
Yeah, look, I love that you say they're a physical retailer, but they're not.
Okay.
But when we
Physical and online, I should say.
they're only online now. So when they went into administration through the Red Group, when Borders went into administration, Angus Robin was part of it. But the point there is that the brand. In your head, you've got them as a trusted physical retailer, which is great. That's one of the reasons we acquired them. That brand, that knowledge of the brand is really good. As far as the question of physical book retailers, we support physical book retailers. We're big believers in a good local bookstore where you can walk in and they can say, hey Wayne, how you doing? Yeah, how was that last book you read? What about this one? I've got this one. I've held it for you. Have a read of it. Let me know what you think. Those retailers will thrive. Those retailers will continue. I have no doubt about it. Where the franchisee model kind of dies off is where you put someone behind the counter who has no knowledge of books. They're just a casual worker who are probably on Facebook, and then they look up from the cash register and say, oh, you want to buy that book? Okay, scan it and give me your money. So, it's where they add the value, and that's in all retail. I'm talking books here, but you look at all retail. If a store is going to add value, you'll go in. If they're just going to expect you to go and pick what's right for you, you're going to get a better service online because we'll at least personalize it for you and for your taste.
Yeah, that last point there around personalizing it leads to another question that one of our audience members have. I think in your prospectus you spoke about leveraging the customer database as part of the growth plan, and I assume that means around like really personalizing the experience for customers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but can you talk a little bit about that? I guess your data strategy and your personalization strategy.
Yeah, sure. So books probably gives us the best insight into people out of any product. There's about 3,500 categories on our website. I said 6 million titles on our website, which means you're shopping across a range of categories. What do I mean by that? So I know if you're into Formula One racing, I know if you're into romance, I know if you're into learning a language, but hold on. I know if you're wanting to travel to Europe, I know if you want to cruise the Mediterranean, so I'm even getting a bit deeper there. I know if maybe you're pregnant. I know you've had a baby. And so what that means is you can really follow someone's journey through life. And we say, our customer is not short-lived. We don't have a customer. You look at some of the furniture brands and, they've got a very, a customer has to be of a certain age before they're buying furniture. Yeah, they're not at school and they're buying furniture, So, and then you look at some of the fast fashion retailers. They've also got a very short lifespan with their customer. With books, it's from the time before they're even born, their parents or their mother and their father are buying books about pregnancy, even before that about how to get pregnant. Yeah, and then all the way through, then they have, picture books and hardcover books and then readers, and then they get into school and then school textbooks, and then they go to university textbooks, and it just goes on, and then the cycle continues. So that data, while we aren't using it yet, really is a growth strategy for us to understand our customers. We don't need to go to our customer and go, how many kids do you have at home? And, do you like to travel overseas? And, are you learning anything new? I know you're learning piano. I know, during COVID, you were trying to cook dumplings, whatever it was. And that was a top seller during COVID.
Really?
Just, cooking dumplings for some reason. But
Surely you got a YouTube for that. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
Interesting. Someone else said the same thing, but we saw a lot of people during COVID. It was a great journey through COVID of watching what people bought, but we saw a lot of people turning to books to learn, to be able to understand cooking or languages, or piano was another big one we saw.
I still think there's something about reading a book that I retain more information than when I watch a video or something like that. Anyway, that's a side point.
I'm learning to skateboard. It's a new hobby I've taken up in the last 6 months. But
From a book?
No, well, I'm struggling off YouTube, so maybe I need to get
I feel that's one where you need to just fall down a few times and just do it, yeah.
But these hands aren't meant for falling. Computer programming is the problem.
So you have, let's talk about going public in the IPO. You mentioned there that you did try in 2016 and sort of put it on the back burner given, I guess, the investors' sentiment towards the impact that Amazon would have. Why 2020? What is it about now that makes it the right time for Booktopia to go public?
Yeah, I think you guys know the markets better than I do. And if you've seen what's happened with e-commerce on the market, it's been crazy. We were looking to list it probably early next year, and then just circumstances as they are, everyone's just saying, well, you should get it away this year. So interesting, little point and a fun fact that we got the listing away in 9 weeks, which we want to claim as a record. We still don't know if it is. We want to claim, and that's really, there was a lot of work that went in before those 9 weeks. But from the time we appointed the JLMs through to, ringing the bell, I believe it was 9 weeks. So 2016 helped with that. Obviously, we'd done a prospectus before. We'd been through due diligence before. We knew what we were coming up to. We weren't, deers in a headlight. But so yeah, I think the market conditions for us was really what it was. Our business has accelerated, significantly over the last year. Truly, would we have got a better value for our business next year? Most likely. The reason I say that is we've just invested heavily in automation. So what we've been able to do is we put $12 million into automation. That funding we took in January, we invested, and we launched that in October. And we really haven't been able to prove out the efficiencies we've been able to gain with that automation. We've spoken to them, and we've spoken to all the investors about that, and it's in our prospectus and whatnot. But, if we really had proven that, my belief is that we may have, even people are going, yep, that they've proven that they can actually do what they're saying that they can do. But it was just, timing. And I think timing is everything. And I think everyone will know that. Anyone who's trying to ever raise money or raise capital or IPO, timing is everything. We learned that in 2016. And we thought, we learned that the hard way in 2016. Let's get it done now. So
yeah, nice.
Worked.
Yeah.
So you listed a week ago today, or a week ago tomorrow?
We listed on Thursday last week.
Yeah. So you've been listed for 4 days.
For context, we are recording on the 9th of December.
Good call. I should have said that. Yeah. So talk us through the day you listed. Did it feel like a big weight off your shoulders? Was there a big party in the Booktopia office? And how did the share price go?
Yeah. So we there was a party in the Booktopia office. We weren't there. We were at the ASX. So we had cupcakes and everyone got there and everyone was wearing their Booktopia t-shirts and they were live streaming the bell ringing and it was a lot of fun. It's a company.
Yeah.
It's a whole culture thing and we can talk culture in a bit, but for us it was about involving our staff. Always involve your staff in everything you do. Don't just, they're not your staff, they're part of the family. So we had that for them, and unfortunately, due to COVID, we could only have 40 people at the ASX. So all the leadership team, being leadership, in Booktopia, there was about 30 staff that came. And then people that worked on the IPO went to the ASX and got to ring the bell, which was a lot of fun. The day for me, I suppose it was there a lot of weight off their shoulders? Yeah, I think there was. There was probably a lot of weight off my shoulders probably 3 weeks earlier, once the book had closed and, once all of that was done. Once there's points along. Once you lodge your prospectus, then you don't need to reread that thing another 100 times, and then, the book closes and you go, okay, this is, we're getting there. And then the ASX signs you off and says, yep, you're signed off to go on the board. So it's a journey. So by then the weight's off your shoulders. I suppose all you're waiting for then on that day is what's going to happen. It's like, you're hoping you wake up that morning to read the AFR just to make sure, the market's good, nothing's happened somewhere. We're not, the ASX hasn't just fallen over. Let's go back 2 weeks. There were some companies who woke up to that, which is unfortunate. So, and then it was just about what's that opening price going to be, because you obviously want to do right by those investors that have backed you. You don't want to have go down. So, and we did. And I don't know the exact numbers on me right now. I try not to follow the share price, to be honest. Otherwise, it becomes a total distraction. But we did well. It was funny, all the JLMs said, how do you feel it went? And I said, are you happy? And I looked at them and said, well, are you guys happy? Because this is my first time doing it. This is your 40th time doing it. And they said, yeah, we're extremely happy. I said, well, then I'm happy. And it was all about, doing right by the investors. We're here long term. This management team, this executive team, we're here long term. We're heavily invested in the company still. And so for us, it's what's that long-term price going to be? Day 4, who knows?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we like seeing managers who are invested in the long term, don't just take the pop and then sell out, but also investors that come on that journey as well. So it's good to see. Speaking of management, one of the things that lots of professional investors say is, management is everything when it comes to investing in a company. So we'd love to get your opinion, Wayne, on your philosophy when it comes to leadership. Do you have one? How do you view yourself as a leader? I mean, you've got 2 pretty significant leadership positions in 2 big tech companies. Yeah, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I've got a number of different thoughts here. The first one, and it's become very hard since we're publicly listed, but it's transparency. We believe in being transparent to our staff, but also out to the market now. continuous disclosure laws, all of that. We've had to really learn very quickly. We had some discussions with lawyers and all the rest, and what is all this stuff. And now we actually understand it all. We can't be as transparent as we used to be. We used to, talk numbers all the time. And,
Which seems contradictory, given that the ASX is meant to make companies be more transparent, and you guys have had to rein it back in.
Yeah, I think maybe we're still transparent in a way, but we need to go through the right channels to do it. If you know what I mean, I can't just
you can't just tell us
pop
now.
out a fun fact here now with you, which I would have done in the past.
Yeah.
We're completely transparent as a company. It's just you've got to first notify the ASX before I can tell you something that might make the price move, or something.
It's regulated transparency.
Exactly. So for us, but if I talk internally, internally we are super transparent. We've always told our team everything about how the company is going, good and bad. What our revenues are, what our margins are, where we're heading, what we're trying to do, what our strategy is. The second one is listening to our staff. So taking things from the ground up, really listening to the feedback we get and changing things as they come to us. It was an interesting transition, probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we went from being a startup in our heads to being a company. And so what happened there is, everyone who was along the journey for the 5 or 6 years that I was there was used to getting promoted, and people would build underneath you and the company would grow and everyone knew everything and everyone would be across everything. And then all of a sudden you become a company. And then people are getting hired into positions and there's not that progression, up the chain. There's not that, automatic. I started as the first software engineer and found myself as the CTO. You know what I mean? I built a team underneath me and grew into my position and proved myself. But there wasn't those opportunities, and you have to make those opportunities happen. You've got to, focus on people's career development. You need to, make sure that they are progressing, that they are going in the direction they want to go, that they're getting the training they want to get. And I think there was a period there where we probably fell short. This was about 5 or 6 years ago, and we heard that. We heard that from our staff to say, guys, we're not progressing.
Yeah.
The transparency is not there anymore, and the transparency wasn't there anymore because it used to be that we were all around a table and we'd all chat about what's happening. Now, all of a sudden, we all couldn't fit around a table. You had to actually now tell the leaders to tell their teams what was happening, send out emails, notify staff of certain things that were happening. So for us, transparency has been key. And my number one, we've spoken about the customer-centric approach, and it'll be in any business that I'm ever involved in. It'll always be, what does the customer want? How can I make this product for the customer? Not for me, not for my co-founder, not for the P&L. What does the customer want? Because at the end of the day, if you get the customer right, that'll flow into your P&L. You'll get the sales, you'll get everything you need, and it'll just flow through. But the key one for me is learning from your mistakes. I've got a big philosophy, and especially being in tech, people make mistakes, and some of those mistakes can be costly. But I'm never the one to hit someone over the back of the head or the back of the ear and say, yeah, you've made a mistake, very bad. We'll sit down and we'll say, okay, what happened? Why did it happen? Let's not make that same mistake again. Because if you make the same mistake again, that's where I'll hit you over the back of the head. That's like, come on, guys, we haven't learned from our mistakes. Yeah. So it's crucial to be, learning from your mistakes and learning along the journey, because otherwise you're never going to grow. Yeah. And you'll always think what you're doing is right, and most likely it's not.
So just one more question on people and culture. If you think for the whole team, not just the leadership team, what culture are you trying to build at Booktopia? Do you guys have a sort of a vision or a motto or a phrase that you try and use to embody the culture throughout the organization?
Look, we don't. I'll be honest. We don't have for us, it's about, just valuing our employees, making sure everyone feels like, valued. Listening to everyone's opinion, it's very important. I've learned that the hard way, that sometimes you make a decision, and if people don't feel like their opinion's been heard, they don't want to go with the decision. But if you hear their opinion and still go with that same decision, it makes a big difference, because they were able to contribute to that decision. So we don't have a motto or anything. We believe in empowered people. So that's one of our core values. I've spoken about customer obsession, spoken about learning from our mistakes. The other one is empowered people, and that's empowered employees. They feel they're empowered to make change. They're empowered to make decisions, and stand by those decisions. Because they need to be held accountable for those decisions.
So the last, theme we want to talk about is the future and future plans. And there's a few questions here. I want to start with, the profit question. As you mentioned earlier, Booktopia has had incredible top line growth, incredible revenue growth. the last 4 years going from 111 million, 129 million, 165 million to over 200 million. So you've almost doubled your revenue in 4 years. The profit hasn't really come there as well. Is that, I guess the first question is why? And then the second question is, do you guys have a plan to sort of turn that profit on at some point?
Yeah, look, we're profitable. We've been profitable for the last couple of years. We're one of few e-commerce retailers that can actually say, yep, we are profitable. We did 6 million in EBITDA last year, and I think this year, I'll have to, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it was 9 million in the prospectus, and if it's not, we can edit that out. And we see that growing, and that profitability is going to come from automation in our distribution center. So we've spoken about that first part that went live in October. The next thing I'm working on at the moment with my team is robots in the DC. Cool. So that goes live first quarter. First calendar quarter next year, or third financial quarter, and that will have robots picking books from shelves and putting books on shelves, and we really see that allowing us to grow our capacity in our distribution center, grow our stock holding in our distribution center, but also then giving us some good benefits of economic scale, so that we can then drop more to the bottom line. And it's all about pushing more volume through the distribution center. The more you can push through the distribution center, the cheaper it is per unit that goes out, and then it falls to the bottom line. So, we have lofty ambitions of our profits that we see going forward. We're a profitable company. We're proud to be a profitable company, and we see that growing into the future.
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. It's the bottom line growth hasn't reflected that growth rate in the top line. Yeah.
So, other than automation and robots in the DCs and distribution centers, what else is in the pipeline for Booktopia over the next 12 months?
So we recently, or probably 2 years now, we launched a distribution business. So we're actually now distributing for international publishers. So the book industry has a lot of people taking a lot of clip of the ticket along the way, like probably every industry. But books in particular, you've got the author who then has a publisher. The publisher then uses a distributor. The distributor then distributes the books to the retailer, and the retailer then sells the books. And so we see that we've taken one step into that, and now we're becoming the distributor. So we've got publishers from overseas who didn't have representation in Australia. What that's allowing us to do is to ship books to customers faster, but also be that distributor for them using our current infrastructure. And then we're also we've got a publishing arm, so we're also now taking on smaller authors. We're not here to take the big authors. We're never going to be able to do them justice. But taking some of those smaller authors who do sell a lot of copies of their book, and we're publishing them and then distributing them through our distribution arm. So as we just work up the supply chain, that's one of the big things that's there for Booktopia. Growing obviously in books, especially in the academic area. We acquired the Co-op bookstore, the university campus bookstore. Late last year.
My favourite bookstore.
So the Co-op bookstore, they focused on the Australian geographic, which they had the stores to, and they saw that as their cash cow, and they really just let academic books go. And you'd go to a university campus bookstore, and they would have 3 copies of a book, and there were 70 people in the course. And we picked up on that really quickly. Publishers were coming to us saying, we need your support. We said, sure, no problem. And we were taking on enormous risk, but we would have like 30 copies or 50 copies of a $300 textbook on our shelves. What it meant is that when a student went to their Co-op bookstore and they didn't have it, or where they were online on their phone and the lecturer said, this is the book you need, we were there, we had the product, and we shipped it. And what that means is we're going to grow that area of our business, and really, get that business moving forward. So, along with other areas of our business. So it's a multi-pronged attack. We are Australia's bookstore, and we want to continue just growing in that direction.
So I guess there's always risks to business. If you were to think about all of them for Booktopia, what would be the biggest risk for your business over the next 12 months?
It's a hard one. The biggest risk to our business, obviously, we were talking through the prospectus risks. You have to do a section in the prospectus, and I said, well, our biggest risk. And someone said, Wayne, what's our biggest risk? I go, well, the internet goes down.
Yeah, literally.
That would be a big risk for you guys.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of businesses are going to struggle.
Yeah.
But think about it.
Amazon.
Well, Equity Mates has done if
True.
No one will hear this interview if the internet goes down.
So I think that's our biggest risk is some disruption in our supply chain of some description. We saw it with COVID. Luckily, we do stock a lot of our books, and luckily we do have a lot of distributors in Australia. So we were able to overcome that. But that disruption in our supply chain has meant that our books coming from overseas have been a bit slower to come, which then is an impact on our customer. So yeah, I hate trying to think what is our biggest risk. People say, what keeps you up at night? That's the other question we often get, and I say nothing. I'm exhausted. I just go to sleep. So, but it's things like that. It's a disruption in some either supply through digital or supply physical. Could be our big challenges or our big risks.
So Wayne, to close it out, it's been a fascinating interview. So thank you for your time. If you think about Booktopia in 10 years, 20 years, you guys are still shareholders, still running the company. What does success look like for you?
Yeah, success looks like just growing a big business, to be honest. It's we're Australia now, growing that into a pretty big business. And then, where do we go next would be the thing. Getting that distribution business really pumping, using our supply chain, using our tech and our logistics to its capacity, getting the efficiencies out of our distribution center, so that we can, just ship books to our customers as quick as possible, but also, as cheaply as possible. And then just to being able to supply Australia with books, ebooks, audiobooks, or physical books, whichever way it might be. So that's success to us. At the end of the day, the growth of the business is number one, and that relies on our customers and servicing our customers really well.
Well, congrats on the IPO. What a journey. Second time round. I can imagine it would be a good feeling. So we're looking forward to seeing how IPO grows over the next few years. I know a lot of our audience are interested in it as well. Thank you for your time today. Very much appreciated getting an insight into your journey and Booktopia more broadly. So appreciate it, Wayne.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Equity Mates Investing Podcast, a production of Equity Mates Media. Please remember that everything you hear in Equity Mates Investing Podcast is general advice only. The content has been prepared without knowing your personal objectives, specific financial circumstances, or goals. The host of Equity Mates Investing Podcast may maintain positions in the companies discussed. Before considering any investment, please read the product disclosure statement and consider speaking to a licensed financial professional.